If it's bleeped on TV, it's not bleeped here. You've been warned. Hey y'all, I'm Jenn. I'm from Oakland, and I'm a queer, black feminist scholar.
This is Daren, hailing from the mean streets of Anaheim. I'm an introvert, a novelist, and a nerd.
We're early 30-somethings with 3 kids and over a decade of marriage.
This is a podcast about the realities of blackness and adult life. We do adult differently.
This is That Black Couple. Greetings. Grab your ice cold water with a lemon wedge. Our 9-year-old said not to do water, but we think it's actually critically important that you stay hydrated and purified in this winter time.
Yeah, people say only in the heat you need water, but you really need it in the cold too.
Yes, and you don't want those lips to crack, or that skin to crack, or your hair to get dry, or your edges to break off. There's only so much Jamaican black castor oil in the world, so drink your water.
Drink it up.
Drink it up. This is That Black Couple. I'm Jenn.
I'm Daren.
Are you?
I am.
You are?
I am.
This is episode 11. And before we get started, I want to make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at That BLK Couple, on Facebook at That Black Couple, and look us up on the internets at www.thatblackcouple.com. You can also support our podcast and website by becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/water cooler convos. That's WATERCOOLERCON V as in Victor OS. Or you can give us a one-time donation at www.paypal.me/watercoolerconvos. We ask that you pledge at least $5 a month, but please believe all donations are welcome.
You can stream episodes on Google Play, Apple iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Make sure you rate us high because, why would you not want to rate us high? Because
Why?
This podcast is amazing.
It's dope.
And we deserve it.
Also, we only have high ratings, so we don't want to...
Don't break the streak.
Don't be that guy. Don't do it. So, last thing before we get started on episode 11, it's important to note that there are only 12 episodes in this first inaugural season of That Black Couple podcast. That means that after this one, there's only one left. We still have some bonus content and probably some videos that we'll post during the break, but we're going to be on hiatus starting January 1st and lasting until February. We'll be back for Black History Month, so don't at me. Don't at me. Don't at me. I'm on break. I'm on vacation. Today's episode is called Commodifying Black Pain. In the First Things First section, we'll talk about the ways that mainstream media operates to exacerbate and benefit from the public performance of Black pain. Then, in the conversation, we'll discuss what Black liberation looks like given this type of system. And finally, in the reflection, we'll discuss our experiences with internalized anti-Blackness and whether it be from us or others, how we can possibly manage in that. We have written a few articles at watercoolerconvos.com covering today's topics, and we'll cover some of the sources from around the web that we thought were pertinent to today's conversation. We'll make sure to drop all those links in the show notes. So, let go.
Let go. Okay. So.
All
right, so mainstream media, I feel like we've talked about this concept a lot, about how Black pain is really just commodified in the public sphere and how it's kind of just turned into entertainment for so many people.
Right.
And reaching back a little bit, when we were first talking about this episode, the thing that really came to mind for me was Wendy Williams when she fainted on air.
Right.
And I'm going to kind of outline it for people if you somehow didn't hear about this. It was such a big news story. I don't know how you didn't, but just to make sure we all have the facts straight. So Wendy Williams was doing a live show for Halloween. It's a big thing on her show. I don't really watch it, but I've heard that like Halloween's a big thing for her, and she does like a lot of costumes, and it's like a big extravaganza. Mm-hmm. And so for this Halloween episode, I guess she had done a couple costume changes, and I think this was toward the end of the episode, and she was now dressed up as the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
And so I think they came back from break, and she was talking. I've seen the video on YouTube.
Right.
I'm sure it's there, like immortalized forever now.
Right.
And so she started talking, and she got like really visibly disoriented. And she was standing behind this podium, and her eyes got really wide, and she started to kind of wobble a little bit, and she fainted. Like,
right.
I mean, this was real live TV, like no delay. So if you were watching the show, you saw her really just faint on live TV, and I think they like cut to commercial really quick,
right? And
they tried to get her back together, and they actually came back and finished the show, which was amazing because
I wouldn't have.
I mean, if you fainted, I mean, usually,
my ass would be laid out. I'm going home.
It's a wrap. That's the end.
I'm going home.
So, but it was a big deal. I mean, it was all over social media. People were talking about it. I think people were saying that they thought that she was having like a stroke. They were trying to say it was all type of health issues. And so afterwards, Wendy Williams came out and she really gave a lot of press interviews and was basically saying, no, what happened was I overheated in my costume.
Right.
And she meticulously went through like moment by moment what was happening in her head as she was standing in front of cameras, and she was getting really hot, and she knew she was going to faint, and she was trying to figure out, okay, I'm about to faint. I have this big podium in front of me. I'm tall.
Right.
So if I fall and this podium falls on me, that's going to be bad. And so she's talking about these split-second moments
where she's deciding how to fall,
like how to fall to like not seriously hurt herself, not possibly die on air,
right?
Like really terrifying moments of thoughts, right? But on the flip side of this, what happened is people saw this image of her and her eyes getting wide and fainting. And it was immediately captured and turned to a meme.
I know.
I mean, it exploded all over.
That's how I saw it. I saw GIFs on Twitter.
Right. I saw the memes before I even knew what the story was.
Absolutely.
Right? Because it was flipped and turned around that quickly.
Right.
And I think this is such a great example of how the pain of Black people is just really just taken, turned into a product, and then reproduced for the whole world to consume.
And sadly, in some cases, by Black people.
Right.
Like, and let's be clear here, like, she is a kind of, like, taboo, she's a not very well-liked person in certain circles. Mm-hmm. She has people who love her, and there's people who hate Wendy Williams. And so I'm not sitting here being like, oh, well, we just love her. I don't have any personal feelings. I don't know her. But let's be clear, she's also a woman, a cisgender heterosexual woman who's often misgendered. Yep. And, she's often called a man. And there's memes out there that are intentionally misgendering her to undermine her own identity and the way that she identifies and who she is. So it's not like, this kind of memeing of her pain is kind of this one-off experience. It's actually a long-term thing, and I would say it's rooted in misogynoir, this kind of hatred of not just Wendy Williams the person, but also this kind of feeling toward prominent Black women, especially taller women, especially more muscular women. We've seen this happen to Serena Williams as well. We've seen this happen to Nene Leakes. This has happened to me. I'm 6'4". I've been 6'4" since I was 12 years old. So this is an experience that happens. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's transphobic. It's misogynistic. And I think what gets me about it is like, whether you like Wendy Williams or not, to take the moment, and I've fainted. I've fainted a lot.
Right. So you know what that experience is
like.
Right.
And it's terrifying. Like that moment when you're like, shit, I'm about to fall. Right. And you're like legit trying to figure out, okay, I'm about to go. And it's getting dark and my vision's fucked up, but I don't want to hit my head, right? Because, that could be it. I could potentially not wake up from that. Or, being tall and falling is really scary because you fall in layers. You fall, it's like part of your body falls and then like 10 minutes later, the rest of your body falls. That shit is terrifying. So, I mean, when I saw that meme, I was scared. It made me really sad because I could see the look on her face and I could tell immediately looking at her face, the terror that she was experiencing. And I think what gets me is like, whether you like somebody or not, right? So whether we love Wendy Williams or we hate Wendy Williams, and I'm aware, that a lot of people don't love her or whatever, but I feel like if we know that there's a system in place, right? The system in place that says that, Black bodies are expendable and disposable, that Black bodies are not as important, that Black women are not really women, that they don't get to be a part of the cult of domesticity, that they don't conform to femininity in the same ways. Or if we know that there's a system that says that, Black people are inherently less human or whatever it is, right? And we know the system exists. How do we simultaneously laugh when we see Black people in pain? I just don't understand how we can then see Black people's pain as something that we enjoy, or that is a source of entertainment.
You were talking about it, and I was thinking, in a weird way, it's almost like a form of self-hate.
Yeah.
Like internalized, like real self-hate.
Internalized oppression.
Like, I go through hard times, and people laugh at me, or they don't value like the struggle that I go through, or the hardships, or the pain, or my tears. And so that means when I see another Black person going through a similar or different struggle,
right,
something hard, something painful, something terrifying, I then can also look at it and say, well, no one valued mine.
Right.
So that means I don't have to value yours.
Right.
Which, as we said out loud, doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It should be the exact opposite. It
right.
should be people didn't value mine, so I'm going to make sure that I value yours.
Absolutely.
Right. We should be in support of each other instead of trying to tear each other down.
Right.
Right. And so it's just so confusing to me, because even as you're talking about it, and you're talking about Wendy Williams, and like you're saying, she's a polarizing character. She's one of those like lover or hater people. A lot of people just feel like it's either one way or the other. Right. But that shouldn't come into this conversation. It shouldn't even matter. It shouldn't matter if she's like the worst person on earth. Right. It shouldn't matter if she's an angel. No matter what it is, any person feeling that type of pain, being in that type of a situation, shouldn't have that moment taken from them. And through
linked fate, through this kind of kinship, I would think that Black people should have a higher likelihood of actually giving a shit that she's painting on camera. But I think there's another example, and this is the one that got me. So really recently, Omarosa gets kicked out of the White House.
Yep.
Right? It is kind of funny.
It's funny, and people were cheering.
Listen. Omarosa, again, she's another polarizing character. And I mean, we will always love her for her immaculate read of Bethenny Frankel.
Listen. If you have not seen Omarosa on the short-lived Bethenny show, when Bethenny had a talk show, I think it lasted one season.
Yes.
She had Omarosa as a guest. If you have not seen that segment air,
that shit is funny.
I actually, once we are done, once you listen to the entirety of this podcast, please make the next stop be YouTube to find that. That
shit's hilarious.
Because it will give you your whole entire life.
She called her so mediocre. To her face. She basically was like, look, you get to be mediocre and you still get a show.
Oh my God.
And I'm amazing and I don't have a show.
And listen, and I don't like Omarosa.
But shit.
But hell.
But I mean, that's the first instance of beckery. I mean, she called out beckery. She was like, look at this beckery. She was like, here it is.
To her face.
To her face. So, you can feel how you want about Omarosa, but I gotta give her, credit for that. But she gets kicked out of the White House, right? And so, I'm not gonna lie. I thought the shit was kind of funny. I did. I was like, girl, of course you get kicked out of the White House. Of course that happens, right? Now, did I go and make memes about it? Did I make some long, Omarosa posts? Did I write 800 words and send it off to the Atlantic? No, I didn't. I'm not that pressed. I'm not that pressed. And I'm also not that interested in getting paid to talk shit about a Black woman.
Exactly.
I'm not interested. So the thing that got me is, of course, Leslie Jones, right? Leslie Jones here for us whenever we need to get a Black woman to trash a Black woman. We can count on Leslie Jones. So by the way, she has me blocked on Twitter, so this is fine. So
that makes it okay.
It makes it okay. So she gets pulled out of the White House, and immediately Leslie Jones, who is the token Black person, token Black girl on SNL, does this skit, and basically it's like the quintessential Omarosa trying to get back in the White House, lying about how she got kicked out. No, I didn't get fired. I left, blah, 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 looking really desperate and basically, making fun of Omarosa. And that really hit me some type of way because I'm looking like, wait, this is the same Leslie Jones, right? This is the same Leslie Jones who, yes, is the token Black woman. So let's remember that. Who also has been openly battling racist designers who won't style her for shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's remember that. She's also the person who's been battling against Twitter trolls who've been harassing her and had to actually get off of Twitter at one point, right? Same person. Okay.
Same one.
Also somebody who had stalkers who were hacking into her phone and releasing nude pictures of her. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is all the same Leslie Jones who's literally been battling misogynoir in Hollywood since she got on SNL. Yes?
Yep.
And has been tokenized on SNL and been basically forced to play every black person except Beyonce.
Right. Which, you remember, the subtext of that was Keenan was playing the black women.
Right.
And he basically came to work one day and said,
I'm not playing women anymore.
I'm not playing any more black women. You need to hire a black woman for the cast to play black women.
Keenan said, no more.
And so they hired 2 black women because Keenan said, I'm not putting on more wigs. That's a whole other episode, though.
I'm sorry, my abs.
So I'm sorry for distracting you.
Oh, shit, my abs.
That's a whole other episode.
Shit, not the truth. Okay. So, correct. That's how it happened. So Leslie Jones goes on SNL, this show that has a predominantly white audience, that has a pretty much all white cast, that just had their first black comedian, that's E-N-N-E, Tiffany Haddish, to come on the show, like, ever, just recently. Mm-hmm. And she goes on there to make fun of a black woman, even though as a black woman, she has been consistently harassed for being a black woman in Hollywood. Am I understanding it correctly?
I think you got that right.
So it's like a turducken of internalized misogynoir.
Yep.
Okay. This is the same woman who did a skit like 2 years ago, where she was like, LeBron, Shaquille, implying that if she was a slave in the right time, in the moment when you got raped by your slave master, that she'd be really popular, even though she said that she can't get a date now, but back then she'd get all the men because she's big and she'd make LeBrons through slave rape.
Right, because she would be forced to get all the men.
She'd be forced.
Because she'd be chosen.
To be raped.
Right.
By other slaves and slave masters so that she could make Shaquille and LeBron.
I'm going to have nightmares of that sound.
And Dwayne Wade. Am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah. I
and Black Twitter dragged the fuck out of her.
Yep.
That's when I got blocked. Actually, I think I blocked another time too. At some other point, Michael Shea involved. But so I want to make sure I'm understanding. I want to make sure that I'm understanding that even when we understand our own personal experiences with anti-Blackness and misogynoir, even when we have our own personal life experiences where we can point to that and say, hey, they are harassing me, they are excluding me, they are belittling me or whatevering me because of the color of my skin and my gender or class or sexuality or whatever it may be, or size or age or ability or whatever. We still think it's okay to perform anti-Blackness for the purposes of placating white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just...
I mean, that's exactly what she did. And that's exactly what she kind of continues to do. That's somewhat her role on the show. I know every time we happen to catch the show, we always talk, whenever we see her on screen, we go, here she go again. She's going to be loud. She's going to be screaming at something. Or she's going to be some kind of black stereotype, because she was basically brought on the show to be that.
But that's my thing, is like, I want better for her.
Right.
And I also want better for us. Leslie Jones actually is funny.
She is funny.
Her ass is fucking funny.
Woman.
And she's been funny since Comic View. That bitch is funny.
We've been watching her.
And black people have loved her for a long time. And Wendy Williams, I don't think that she's fucking trash. I really don't think she's trash. I mean, I think she's doing real shit out here. I mean, she's not super popular, but is she really that different than like Charlamagne and the Breakfast Club? I don't think she's that much different.
But she's also in her 50s.
Right. So I'm really puzzled as to how, and we're going to get into this, I think, on the next segment too, about how people kind of cherry pick the way that they kind of believe that people deserve justice or humanity or grace. And I think that's what we're really getting at today, is like this process of commodifying black pain, whether it comes from outside of black communities, like outside of the black diaspora, or whether it comes from within. There is this kind of process of picking. Like, who do we fight for? Who gets to be seen as honorable? Who gets to be seen as worthy? And I think when we start really like digging down and drilling down into those questions, we don't actually have really good answers for them. And I really hope we can kind of get at that today.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
Thank you for listening. We are the proud founders of watercoolerconvos.com, a platform at the intersections of Blackness, culture, and adulting. We started that Black couple to dive deeper into the issues facing young Black millennial folks navigating the anti-Black, anti-queer, white supremacist world today. This podcast is supported by donations and patronage of our listeners and readers of our blog. You should head over there and check out some of the content when you get a chance.
If you would like to become a monthly subscriber or patron and help fund our content, sign up at www.patreon.com/watercoolerconvos. Patreon is spelled Patreon.com. Please consider giving $5 or $10 per month to help us build our platform and grow our organization. We really want to hire new writers and social media people, y'all, but we can't do that without your help. You can also give a one-time donation at www.paypal.me/watercoolerconvos. All donations are welcome. You can stream the show on Google Play, Apple iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. When you listen, please consider hitting that heart button, sharing an episode, giving us a 5-star rating, and leaving some dope-ass comments. This helps us with our page views and also gives us more listeners for the show. Thank you so much.
Let's get back to the show.
All right, so it's time for the conversation. You ready?
I'm always ready.
Oh, stop it. So I think we're going to have a conversation really about what Black liberation really looks like. And I've been really thinking about this for a long time. A friend of mine, Ashley, asked me this on the phone a couple weeks ago. And I was really thinking about it. And it took me back to an article by my friend Hari, who is the managing editor of Black Youth Project. They wrote an article about Rashawn Brazel, who was murdered. He was a queer young man, and he actually was decapitated. And was, I think he was 19 years old, and it was a horrible, like a vicious murder. And the way that his body was disposed of was really tragic. So I don't want to rehash the whole thing because it's really, really, really vulgar and very difficult to kind of walk through. But the overall conversation is that, you know, this is a Black queer man who was murdered by someone within our community, right? And how do we start thinking about Black liberation? How do we think about things like prison abolition? How do we think about things like restorative justice and transformative justice when, you know, there are people who are being irrevocably harmed within Black communities, right? So I want to read a part of it from Hari's piece. It says, "For prison and police abolitionists like myself, moments like these present perhaps the greatest dissonance we ever encounter in our politics. Cisgender, heterosexual Black men especially remain a substantial threat to their queer, trans, femme, and female counterparts, and prison/the police sometimes seem to be the only answers available when there is such a lack of accountability amongst the people who commit violence against us." And I think that is so true, right? So I actually like helped edit this piece, and it was really hard. I was sitting there reading it, and I was trying to think through, like, you know, what does this look like? And this is in reference to Wendy Williams and to Leslie Jones, and with respect to this idea that we're all living up underneath the same system, right? If we truly believe that we're all living up underneath the same system, then we can't cherry pick the way that we offer grace and humanity and justice and liberation.
Right.
Right? So that means that when we believe that all Black lives matter, that includes the raggedy ones, that includes the ashy ones, that includes Tyrese, that includes Chris Brown, that includes R. Kelly, that includes Wendy Williams, and it includes Leslie Jones, and it includes me and you, right?
Yeah, all of us.
Okay, so if that's the case, then how do we enact that form of personal struggle in public, or do we?
And I think people don't really want to think through, like, through all the true depths of what that means. Like, people will say Black Lives Matter, and they'll understand that means all Black Lives Matter, and all those people that you listed, they'll understand, oh, those people are all Black, so yeah, they're Black Lives Matter. But I don't think they like to think and go all the way down into the rabbit hole of what that actually means.
Right.
Like, what does it mean when we say Black Lives Matter? What is true? Like you said, like this whole segment is titled, what does Black liberation actually look like? Because it includes liberation for all of those people.
Right. And if we live up under a system that commodifies Black pain, right? So we live up under a system that says that when Wendy Williams faints on television, you want to be the first person that makes the meme because then you go viral on Twitter. Or if there's a death in your community and you videotape it, you want to go viral by selling that video or getting that video out. Or somebody is harmed in your classroom or at the local mall or whatever, and you have that footage. You want to go viral. You want to basically sell Black pain to a larger, predominantly white mainstream media body to help basically commodify us. And that doesn't help us get any closer to liberation either. And it doesn't actually keep us in line with ideas of accountability either. Right? So we have all these cases where there's been footage or there's been like witnesses or whatever. And it doesn't mean that the people who are actually committing transgressions against us or harming us actually are taken to task. It doesn't mean that they're actually, put in jail. But then you think like, wait, but jail, is that the answer? Right? So this is a really hard circular argument. It's a really difficult thing. And whenever I think about this Leslie Jones, Wendy Williams thing, I always think about how do we, or even Tyrese, this was a big one. People were really mad at me because I posted online about Tyrese and how I wasn't about to just start laughing at him. Like when he started posting all those videos and stuff and like crying, I was just like, this dude looks sad. Like I just felt bad for him. And some people were like, you know what, he's an abuser and, he harms folks and, all this stuff. And that stuff absolutely is true, right? So I read articles after I posted that, some people sent me links and I'm like, that's horrible. That's absolutely horrible. He's also really anti-Black. He's also really anti-Black woman. He's a major misogynoirist. Yep. Right? But at the same time, I'm like, but I also believe in justice for all Black people. So I'm not sure how to navigate that situation.
Well, because if you really believe in justice for all Black people, it means that you don't throw Black people away.
Right.
That's one thing that we've said ad nauseum, at least in our household, in our personal conversations, where we, as Black people, we can't throw each other away,
right?
Because we know the harm that we all experience. We know the world that we all face together. And so if we're throwing each other away, well, then we're all just thrown away.
Exactly.
Right? No one is here for us but us.
Right. And the thing is, and that's some Combahee River Collective stuff you just said, by the way.
I know. That's my low-key academic life.
You on your Combahee today. But also, like, I think about this as a system, right? And I always, we're gamers. And I always think about, like, Tron. I know. But how, like, you go into the video game and the game is set up to basically annihilate certain people. And I always think about, this idea of Black people being a glitch, right? Our survival being a glitch. Like, we are a part of a system, white supremacist system, an anti-Black, heteropatriarchal, capitalistic system meant to annihilate Black people. So our survival is a glitch. Our survival is not a expected outcome of the system. The system was not designed for us to survive, and it certainly was not designed for us to thrive.
See, now you're on some like Wreck-It Ralph.
I know, I was thinking that too.
Some like Matrix. You just pull from like all these different like entertainment sources.
I can't help it. I'm a nerd.
But it's true.
Yeah, and so I'm just thinking about if we see Black survival as a glitch, if we see Black survival in a white supremacist, heteropatriarchal capitalist system as a glitch, then how do we simultaneously look at Black pain and benefit from it? How? I don't know how. I don't get it. I'm asking. Tell me the answer.
Well, I think honestly, it comes from a place of, like you said, of wanting to get something for yourself, wanting to go viral, wanting to get the clicks, wanting to get the views, wanting to get some type of income or benefit, right? And so we think, oh, this is my come up. This is my moment to get something for myself. This is my chance to overcome the oppression that I faced for so long, right?
I think for me, and I don't want to be insensitive, but I feel like I always think about our struggle against injustice and our struggle for liberation as being a collective one. And that we can't be free until we're all free, right?
Right.
And so I guess I just don't actually understand. I actually literally just in my mind don't understand how we have any conception of justice that isn't collective.
Well, but I think that goes back to what I was saying before, where I said I don't think people really think things all the way through. I think there's an ignorance there of not really thinking about, well, if I really want justice, if I really want to overcome, like, what does that really mean? Like, what does that really look like? Like, me clicking on this link, or me sharing this article, or me taking this image or this video and using it as a meme to illustrate A, B, C, D, E, or whatever. Does that actually really factor into my own like growth?
Right.
Or my own freedom? Or does it actually undermine it? Am I actually undermining myself by participating in these actions? And I think people don't take the time to really examine themselves in that way. And it's very easy in this type of environment, in this type of society and world, the way it's set up, to just, click, like, share, and keep going.
Right.
And not really examine what you're doing and what you're a part of.
I also think that it's very desirable to be a part of the system. Like, there are still a lot of Black folks who want to assimilate, who want to be a part of whiteness, who, that was something that I thought I was supposed to do for a long period of my life. I thought I was like supposed to eventually just grow up and have a white picket fence and do like, white people shit. I didn't know what it was. I just knew I was supposed to figure it out, and I knew that I was hella Black, but I was like, that's when you get older, you just kind of whiten, and then that's becoming an adult. You are respectable and all this stuff. And it's like, there is still this cultural like obsession with assimilation and this cultural obsession with respectability politics and with contorting and being, something other than Black, other than brown, other than queer, other than disabled. And I do think that obviously that is a major impact here and a major influence here. I think I just get confused because I see people who actually believe in collective justice, who actually believe in collective struggle, who will simultaneously share a meme of Wendy Williams fainting on television.
Right.
And I'm like, girl, like, how? I mean, how can they both exist? Because I do think that there's certain ways where we maybe subconsciously, or as we're still learning and still growing, we're still working through processes of unlearning white supremacy. So we all are uplearning the system and we all were socialized in the same system. And so we embody white supremacist processes and systems in some ways. And we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But there's also ways that we consciously participate. And that's where I wonder how we can think about things like prison abolition, or like, the legalization of marijuana, or thinking about education reform, all these things we fight for, the fight for 15, like the way we think about wages and all this stuff. And this is why we continue to see large rifts between, Black elites and Black upper class folks and well-to-do Black folks and like working class Black folks and poor Black folks and queer Black folks. We see all these rifts in many cases because we have a really hard time understanding that what we actually do, like what we actually do in praxis, it has an impact on a larger system of processes. And I always wonder how do we reckon with that? Like, how do we reckon with our lived experiences being a part of a larger, atmosphere, a larger environment of anti-Black systemic praxis?
That is a really, really interesting point, an interesting question. And, as I think about this particular moment where we are in life, I think about, we are in this social media moment, right? Where we have access to everything and we share everything and we say everything is about us and who I am and what I can get in making me and building a brand,
right?
And, building a platform, very, very much about, self. But we are also in this very radical moment,
right,
where, especially for Black folk, we are having this like this renaissance and this rediscovery of really being radical and saying, I am who I am and it's different and that's okay. And you are who you are and you're different and that's okay. And we'll all be different together.
Right.
And support each other. And so it's a really interesting push-pull.
Right.
Where, we see so much collective action going on across the country.
Right.
We see all this push for natural hair acceptance and,
right.
and being proud of who you are and being proud of your skin and whatever that looks like for you. And,
right.
Being proud of your sexuality and your identity and fully embodying who you are and having that kind of build up to a collective.
Right.
But it's interesting because like I said, at the same time, it's also very much about the individual.
Right.
And so I think that gets to the heart of your question of saying, it's like, well, then how do we really look at a meme and
right.
sharing a meme and not understand that actually undermines all of that work?
Right. How do we simultaneously participate in the very thing that seeks to annihilate us
right.
while trying to dismantle the thing that seeks to annihilate us?
Right.
And I think that's something that I constantly struggle with. And I think, as somebody who's in the academy, somebody who is technically, I guess, middle class now, which is very foreign to me as somebody
mm-hmm.
who grew up struggling, and, somebody who has worked in like corporate America and, speaks with, a certain diction and can move in certain circles. And I have certain access, to certain, privileges because of my education or whatever it might be. But knowing that I'm like a hair from being back in poverty, if any type of emergency happens, I'm not, generations wealthy, like I'm
right.
not even wealthy. so like understanding that kind of like the tenuousness and that tenuous relationship. And so I just really, I don't know. I think the answer is obviously to dismantle the system, right? It's just to get at the heart of the system and just get rid of that shit. But I also wonder, how we offer grace to people who are struggling with this process, with the kind of like push and pull of one's participation in a white supremacist system, and sometimes having to do it out of necessity for survival. Sometimes people assimilate, sometimes people pass out of necessity and survival. And then also understanding that, that we have to also come to terms with and grapple with the ways that we also subconsciously participate. And so I don't know. I don't think we have any answers today. I don't think there's any answers to these questions.
Not
but
really.
I do think that, we should call out things like the memifying of Black people, especially the memifying of Black women. I've seen a lot more memes of Black women than pretty much anybody else. I mean, I've seen more memes of Tamar, Nene Leakes, Nicki Minaj,
mm-hmm.
and Wendy Williams or whatever. A lot more Black women in memes than anybody else. And I'm like, y'all don't think there's any correlation between that and misogynoir? I don't think that we even really grapple with the idea that the fact that everyone, when they use expressions, when people are using expressions on the internet, they're using Black women's faces and bodies and hands. I just think about that.
Honestly, you said that, and I really want to kind of let that breathe a little bit, because that's one of those things, like, I really want people to think about that.
Yeah.
Like, when people are using an image to represent themselves on the internet and how they're feeling, or a joke or something they think is silly or whatever,
right?
They are using Black women's faces and bodies.
It's Phaedra, it's Portia, it's Kenya Moore, it's everybody from Love and Hip Hop LA. Like, right. It's Black women. It's Black women. And these are men sharing it. There's everyone, all genders are sharing it.
Mm-hmm.
All races of people sharing it. And it's Black women. And I'm like, how do we not see that as commodifying Black? And it's often them crying. It's often them angry. It's often, except for that Michael Jordan meme that everyone uses now, right, where he's crying. But it's often, Black women in some moment of pain. And that's the meme that they're using to kind of express themselves. And I don't know, I just really wonder about how we participate in that culture. And I ain't gonna lie, I got hell of those memes. I ain't gonna lie. A nigga got hell of those memes. I got a shit ton of them, right? So I'm being critical of myself right now too. And thinking about how I participate in that too.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth having the conversation.
And I think really at the end of it all, I think what it really comes down to is, are you doing these acts out of love or not? Right? So when you're sharing Wendy Williams' face is that any type of loving act? Or
Right.
Right. Right. That's not showing any type of love or
Right.
grace toward her. Like,
right.
you might not like her. You might not like, that person, 2 doors down from you who
Right.
was rude to you the other day, who said something trashy or racist or misogynistic or whatever, what
Right.
have you. But there's a way to approach people and come to them and be critical from a place of love.
Or also, is it out of love of Black people?
Right.
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 Even just out of love for Black people.
Right.
Versus just coming just to destroy.
Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah.
There are different ways, and we have to make sure that we are editing ourselves and watching what we are doing.
I agree.
Like what you hear? You can find my mom and dad, aka That Black Couple, on the web at thatblackcouple.com. You can find them on Facebook at That Black Couple, and you can find them on Instagram and Twitter at That BLK Couple. If you have questions or comments about the show, email them at thatblkcouple@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.
Okay, so now it's time for the reflection.
All right.
And so for the reflection, we want to talk about how we've overcome anti-Blackness in our own lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a minute really thinking about that and thinking about the anti-Blackness that I've dealt with within myself and kind of what I've done to overcome it and where it's come from. And when I really think about it, a lot of the anti-Blackness I've had has been really subtle. I think it's all the really subtle societal things that kind of get programmed into you, just growing up within this system. As I said before, I grew up in Southern California. The place I lived is basically known.
You grew up in Orange County.
Yes, I grew up in Orange County.
Thank you. That's different.
Like the Real Housewives.
Yes, exactly.
And it's known to be like a Republican conservative enclave. Like,
right.
When you think about California, it's like super Democratic, but all the conservatives live like way up in the north or in Orange County. And so like I live in a place where to be really honest, there just aren't a lot of Black people.
Right.
There's a lot of white people and not a lot of Black people.
You know all of them, either related to you or your mom's sorority.
Well, and that's honestly, that's real talk. When you're a Black person in Orange County, just to diverge
join a sorority, or go to church.
Yeah, in a sorority or a fraternity or a church, and you've basically crossed every Black person within the entire county,
or somebody's mama or cousin,
and not even just Orange County, most of LA County, too,
and
probably.
San Diego,
right? Sorry, we took a little sidestep there. But yeah, but living in that type of environment, a lot of the anti-Blackness that I got was really just from society. It's a lot of the kind of generic stuff that I think a lot of people get, like all of these stereotypical views of what Blackness means or what Black people are, or in a lot of ways also because Orange County is a more affluent area, it was also kind of like a classist type of examination of, oh, we're poor Black people are like this, or women that have too many children, or all of these like really just terrible myopic views on Black people,
right,
and actual humanity,
right, that
when you really look at it, like, don't make any sense,
right.
And so for me to really try and overcome that, and it's something I'm still overcoming and still working through every single day, and I probably will be for the entirety of my life,
right,
it just really takes looking at the things that I think about people, like really examining it and saying, is that really true?
Right.
Am I taking an entire person and putting them into a box based upon 3 check boxes?
Right.
And is that fair to them? And is that something I can really extrapolate across, an entire race of people? Is that really accurate? And I think, and we were talking about this earlier, I think it really just takes thinking about things a couple steps.
Right.
To really undo a lot of the ignorance that we are taught and programmed to believe.
Right.
And a lot of it in that same respect is really kind of lazy mindedness. It's like and that's all that stereotypes really are.
The shortcuts, yeah.
It's a shortcut to say, oh, well, they're Black and, he's big, so he's scary. Or he's going to rob me. Or she's Black and, her butt is big. That means she's there for my consumption. Or she's Black and she has 3 kids. She's by herself. Oh, she must not be married, and she must just be in these streets, and she's probably on welfare. And it's taking these really simple, basic judgments or facts or pieces that we can get in a split second and making an entire determination on a person.
Right.
which, you know, is fully anti-Black, because we know that Blackness is so full,
right,
and is so vast,
right,
that to even try and box it in like that
right,
is just a joke,
right,
and so every time that we do that, we are just participating in that same
Absolutely.
system of trying to limit the expansiveness of Blackness.
Absolutely, and I think I think what you said is really important about like anti-Blackness not being something that we can just overcome. It's like, oh, I got my anti-Blackness inoculation and now I'm pro-Black and everything I do is pro-Black and I got it and I'm good. Like, I think it's really important that we are clear that being involved in a struggle against injustice and a struggle for liberation of all Black people is a collective and continuous thing. It's not something that you just say I'm doing like today and then for the rest of your life you're doing it. You have to wake up every single day and decide to actively engage in a struggle for justice for all Black people. You know, it's like that's not, and the same thing with anti-Blackness. Like, it's very easy. The world is set up in a way where it's very easy to be anti-Black. It's like incredibly easy to do it. And there's all these opportunities to turn on your television and watch movies and shit and television shows like This Is Us, and other media that you know actually work to sell anti-Black imagery. And I'm bringing up This Is Us because I wrote that article and people are mad at me about it.
Just go ahead and get into it, because we both love This Is Us. I love that show.
I do too.
And I can't wait for it to come back on, because I want to see what's happening with my people.
Yeah, me
my
too.
Randalls and all that.
Me too.
But go ahead and get into it.
Well, let me just go ahead and say it. So I wrote this article about This Is Us on Water Cooler Convos, and I really thought it was a very gentle article. I thought it was a gentle critique.
It was.
I thought it was very kind. I liked the show. I love Sterling K. Brown. Everyone who knows me knows I love Sterling K. Brown. I love Susan Kelechi Watson. I love the dad who passed away. I love the kids. I like the Black people. I'm Issa Rae. I watch for the Black people. That's why I'm watching the show. But I also did not like this season when Randall really was being kind of a jerk. He really was being very patriarchal. And I know that he has anxiety, so nobody, don't at me. Don't tell me he has anxiety. I understand that he has anxiety. I live with anxiety every day. I don't need a primer on anxiety. Thank you.
You got a whole article on Water Cooler Combos about that one too.
So. Save your links. Save your Googling. I know he has anxiety. I know what it is. I have it. But also, I think, you know, the way that he treats women, you know, and the way that he talks to Beth and the way that he operates on the show has been really problematic this season with reference to Deja, the adopted foster child, and her mother, and how he really like trashed Shauna, Deja's mother, on several occasions, and kind of just talked to her like she was just trash, like she was disposable. And, you know, a lot of people, when I said that about Randall, people were mad at me. I mean, I had people threatening to like never read anything I ever wrote again. I had people who were just like, you can't write, and do you have kids? You don't even know. And what's your life experience? I mean, it became very personal. And people started acting anti-Black toward me in defense of these imaginary characters. People started defending Beth, who's not a real person, because they like Susan Kelechi Watson, who is a real person. They're like, Beth went to Howard. I'm like, she didn't though. Like, Susan Kelechi Watson went to Howard. But also, what the fuck does it have to do with the characters on the show? Right?
Exactly.
Like, so I bring that all up because I also think that there are ways that we really we fight so hard to kind of fight for this respectability and this well-to-do-ness of Blackness, you know, like this Jack and Jill debutante style, like assimilationist, you know, we have culture too, Blackness, that also reflects a way that we think that, you know, poor Black folk, working class Black folk aren't really worthy Black folk. And that was really my critique. My critique was that, you know, that I actually really love Queen Sugar because, you know, it's a whole bunch of working class Black folk on that show. And you can see in that show that there's a lot of Black culture. There's a lot to the Black diaspora. And it's a beautiful, beautiful diaspora. And we look at This Is Us, and you get this really flat, like we don't even know what the real, like what their house looks like, Randall and Beth's house. I don't know. We've never seen anything in there. It doesn't look like they really like living there. There's nothing special about it. It's like Blackish. Like, you look at their house and you're just like, okay, thank you, Johnson family. It just looks like insert, you know, rich people White House here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and we all know that's not what Black people do. We be having like paintings and like our kids' stuff up in there. Like, where the Blackness at? It's shit like that. And I just kind of was like looking to see more of that with This Is Us. I understand that like Randall is raised by, Mandy Moore.
You don't have to get quiet on her name.
but I also think that there's ways that we accept those types of portrayals. We accept those types of portrayals because in some ways we too believe that that's the type of Blackness that we should aspire to. I do think that there's a lot of cases where like people were so disappointed with the Cosby Show after, we found out that Cosby is a fucking piece of trash because they really believed in the Cosby family.
Right.
That's what gets me. Is like people believed in the Huxtables. They thought that Bill Cosby was actually a Huxtable. They thought that the Huxtable family were real people because they were aspiring to be the Huxtables. And I'm really concerned about the ways that we see images like that. We latch onto images like that, and we use images like that, and we often weaponize them against poor and working class Black people in ways that don't get us any closer to justice and liberation. They're not, the Huxtables don't help us think about ways to make it so that, trans women have more access to healthcare, or that, poor teens, queer teens have access to reliable home and shelter. Like, that's not going to help us. The Huxtables ain't never dealt with that shit. So I don't understand how we're going to really have this conversation if all we're doing is not only are we like not wanting to have the conversation about our own complicity, but then we go and participate in the media that commodifies Black folks and looks at a story like Shauna's, looking at Deja. Deja is a child who's been abused. Her mother's been incarcerated. And they use that to make Randall seem like a hero. A hero. A hero.
Yep.
Right? It's another way that they commodified her pain. And then Shauna just kind of basically faded into the background. She was a prop to make Randall look like a superstar.
And to really get back to the concept of anti-Blackness and really kind of like, how do we get rid of it? I think, to your point, a lot of what happens in entertainment is we get these depictions and we grab onto them, we hold onto them tight, and we say, this is amazing. This is mine. It's here, and I'm so happy, and I'm going to support it. That happened with Cosby Show. Like you said, it happened with Blackish. It's happening with This Is Us. Like, we want to just valorize these people and hold on to them so tight and never let them go. But I think, like you said in the piece, and like you just said a moment ago, we also now have Queen Sugar, which to me is such a disruptive force, because a lot of times when we talk about entertainment, like you said, it's like it's great. This stuff is great, but we can do better. We deserve better. And it's not to knock what's there. It's just to say, that's great. Now let's improve that and let's make it better. Let's make it more inclusive. Let's make it more representative. And I feel like Queen Sugar came and it really showed that, look, we can do better. Right. It's a thing that can be accomplished, that can be on TV, and people will watch it and it'll have good ratings. Right. And the critics will think it's amazing. And we don't have to capitulate to the system of whiteness. Right. And we don't have to commodify our pain. Right. We can actually have the fullness of Blackness. The fullness. Joy. Pain sometimes. Happiness. Love. Divorce. Children. Wealth. Struggle. Right. All of it. We could actually have all of it. And so what happens when we imagine Blackness is actually having the permission to experience all of it? To have fullness. That's all I'm asking for. I'm just saying, we don't have to commodify our pain. We don't have to use our pain to participate in a system of white supremacy. We don't have to do, Audre Lorde told us, the master's tools, right? We don't have to use the master's tools, right? So maybe I guess the conversation redounds to Ava DuVernay for everything. Is that the answer? That's always the answer. I feel like that's the answer. Just fuck it. Just let Ava DuVernay know, because then that's Black women's labor. I don't know. I would say this. Ava DuVernay as an example for everything. Can we clone her? Follow that example. Clone Ava DuVernay. And then split the work evenly and make sure she's paid evenly across each of her clones. Nah, but we watch Black Mirror, and that's coming soon. And that show has shown that cloning is not that hot. Remember what that Netflix show, What Happened to Monday? Clones don't go well. Yeah, clones, they end up dying. Okay, well, we'll think about how to get Ava DuVernay to be the answer to everything. But not just her alone. She's good at picking a team. Delegate. Yes. She's the delegator in chief. Yes. Okay.
Thank y'all for listening. Before you go, make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ThatBLKCouple, on Facebook at That Black Couple, and look us up on the internets at www.thatblackcouple.com. You can stream episodes on Google Play, Apple iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. And you gotta rate us high, because we're petty bitches. Bye!